Hello, everyone. I'm recording this to share a vision that I had on March 1st, 2020. I've never done this before, so hopefully this will go well. I've been watching other people share visions and dreams they've had, and they verify them with verses of scripture. And so I hadn't thought of doing that before, but because I've heard other people do that, I want to try that myself. No guarantees that this is the right verse to do, but this is the one I found. So it's the book of Genesis, chapter 19, verse 14. And it says, "So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law and the betrothed of his daughters, and he said, 'Get up and leave this place, for Hashem is about to destroy the city.' But he seemed like a jester in the eyes of his sons-in-law." Okay, so whether that this is a good one or not for the vision, I don't know, but here we go. So there were three parts to it. First, in the first part of the vision, I looked out the window pre-dawn, and I saw these flying vehicles going around. They were like sort of the shape of round pegs. If you've ever played the game Mastermind, where you have 6 different colored pegs you put into 4 holes. So they were like basically like that shape, but much larger. But sort of like a cylindrical, half cylindrical at the top, and sort of like a cylinder in the middle going down. And that the cylinder going down was thinner and longer than the part at the top. So they were flying around as if maybe searching for something. And then I also saw like black military helicopters also flying around in the same area. And whether they were helping them search or tracking them, I don't know, but that's what I saw. And it was hard to make it out in details because there was just a little bit of light before the dawn. So that was the first part. But they seemed, I got the impression that they seemed dangerous, the cylindrical peg-shaped vessels that were flying around. So the second part is that I was basically watching a presidential debate. And it was a general election debate, and Joe Biden was on the stage, and I wasn't allowed to see anybody else. I was only allowed to see him. And he didn't even, in what I saw, he didn't even say anything. It was just a question that was asked to him. And the reporter or the moderator asked him, "Are the reports in the Something Gazette that your campaign manager sent a letter to the Congressional House leadership asking them to disclose to the public the real reason that Congress is not in session, that Congress left Washington, D.C.? And then that part of it ended. I didn't get to see his response. And then in the third part, I looked out the window, and I saw 2 big like saucer-shaped vessels. If you ever watch Star Trek: The Next Generation, and the Enterprise D. It looked like not the whole thing, but just they looked like 2 of the saucer section of that ship, like 2 of those. They were really big, really close to the Earth, and I immediately closed my shades and tried to get down to the ground to sort of like hide from them because I was scared of them. And then when I looked back, they moved further away from the Earth, further up in the sky, so they took up less of the sky, perhaps to be like less intimidating. So basically, that was the whole vision in the 3 parts. But what's interesting is that when I look at my notes, the notes that I have, the second part about the question that was asked, that's not what I wrote down about a letter to Congress about them leaving Washington, D.C. That's not the question that I wrote down. The question that I wrote down is the campaign manager, is it true they sent a letter to Congress asking the leadership of Congress, of the House, to disclose to the public about threats and intimidation from extraterrestrials to Congress? That's what I wrote down in my notes that I took either the same day or the next day about it. And so I find it strange that my memory does not match up with my notes that I took very soon after. But I also want to give some more context. So on March 1st, 2020, this was just during the primary season of the 2020 election cycle. Joe Biden had just won South Carolina, I believe, but Bernie Sanders was still the favorite. And it kind of looked like Bernie Sanders was going to win. So the afternoon, that same afternoon or evening, after I had this vision in the morning, Pete Buttigieg dropped out of the race. The next day, Klobuchar, she dropped out of the race, and they both endorsed Joe Biden. And that was surprising because they both kind of, at the debate, they'd both been kind of like against each other. So they both dropped out within a day of each other. And this is like the same day and the day after I had the vision. And then the day after was Super Tuesday, where Joe Biden went on to win, become the lead candidate for the Democrats, and went on to win their nomination. And then he was the Democratic nominee and became president. But when I had the vision that Sunday morning, March 1st, it had looked like Bernie Sanders was probably going to be the Democratic nominee. So it seemed like that aspect of the vision came to fruition very quickly after I had it. So getting back to the scripture that I had chosen, if people listen to this and have better ideas of it, I chose this one because as soon as people hear about extraterrestrials, they kind of laugh and think it's ridiculous. And so I think that's why the part about the Lot's sons-in-law thinking that he was a jester and didn't take it seriously, that's what reminded me of why I chose that. And I feel like that's a common reaction people will have. But I want to point out the vision was only about asking a question about whether the question was about Congress leaving D.C. and not giving the real reason to the public, or the public not trusting the real reason, or whether that was really about a question about intimidation from extraterrestrials. None of that indicates that really happened in this vision, but just that whatever happened caused somebody to ask that question at a debate. So it could be that those things had happened that way. It could be that whatever happened made people think of that. So it's not, even if the vision were to come to pass, it's not proof that extraterrestrials they exist or don't exist. But so nevertheless, that's the vision. And if anybody has any suggestions about a better scriptural verse than Genesis chapter 19, verse 14, that they think is more applicable, or any comments or questions people have, I'd be happy to answer them. But thank you and have a good day. I want to add a few more thoughts to this. I thought it was interesting that I wasn't shown the other candidates. It was like I was looking through a keyhole and only seeing Joe Biden on the stage. And I wonder if that's because there was something unexpected about who else was on the stage. Being that this happened back in 2020, and I thought it was about the 2020 general election debate, I thought that meant there could either be a third candidate, or that the expected Republican candidate, Donald Trump, wouldn't be there. And it could be that this has passed and this was a possible future that didn't come to be, and there's nothing else to worry about. But it could also still be that, like, for example, maybe Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to be at the debate. And 4 years ago, I don't think I would have even recognized who that was if I'd seen him in the vision. The other thing I wanted to say is that I know it seems strange that my memory of the question and what I wrote down in my notes is different. And I do want to take some responsibility for that and point out my own fault. And is that as soon as the moderator, started asking a question about the campaign manager, I just started drifting off and I just lost interest because I was thinking like who cares about what the campaign manager did? I want to hear what the candidates have to say about what's going on in the world, what their positions are, what they're going to do as president, things like that. And what some campaign manager did or said doesn't really matter to me. And I guess you might be thinking, like, how could you be having a vision about the future and just have your mind drift off? But like, this was the first time this had ever happened to me. And while it was occurring, it was so incredibly real that it didn't feel like anything out of the ordinary. And it wasn't until after I woke up that I was like, whoa, like that was the future. Like that didn't really just actually happen. That was sort of something that was like at another state of consciousness, and it wasn't physically real. And I was stunned by that. And I thought to myself, I'm never telling anyone about this because they'll think I'm crazy. But eventually, now I'm telling people. And I did actually a couple weeks afterwards. I did talk to some people about it. The other thing is in my notes, I asked a question about this. I said, will this happen on October 12th? And I don't know why I was focusing on October 12th back then, but I think the number 1012, the date 1012, had meaning to me back then. And so I don't know if there'll be a third debate then or something big could happen then, or if it's just some random coincidence that date popped into my consciousness back then. Could also be the 10th month in the Hebrew calendar would be the 12th of Tevet, not the 12th of October. So who knows? The last thing I want to say, or the second to last thing actually, is that the news has come out about the upcoming presidential debates. The first being on June 27th on CNN with Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, and the second being September 10th with David Muir and Lindsey Davis. I feel like the woman who asked the question in the debate that I've been talking about, I feel like that might have been Lindsey Davis that I saw. I think back then I didn't even know who that was. I didn't recognize her in the vision, but now when I see her, she kind of looks familiar. And this was like 4 years ago, but that I had the vision. But it seems like she could have been the woman I saw in the vision asking the question at the debate. And the last thing I want to say is I feel like there's a lot of tension and anxiety in the world and in other people's videos about the end of days and the 7 years of tribulation and things like that, and what we should do. So I wanted to share the last 3 verses of the book of Ecclesiastes, written by King Solomon. It's chapter 12, verses 12 through 14. Beyond these, my son, beware. The making of many books is without limit, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. The sum of the matter, when all has been considered, fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the duty of every person. For God will judge every deed, even every hidden thing, whether good or evil. So that's what I guess that's what I would recommend. I think if we're always doing good, obeying God's commandments, loving your neighbor as yourself, and doing acts of kindness, I think we're going to be just fine no matter what comes. Always remember that God is in charge.